What's happening, everybody? I hope you're doing great. My name is Braston Henry, and I'm a developer advocate at IBM, and I'm excited today to share my latest dev blog. It's been a while since I've been able to put one of these together, but today I'm going to be talking to all you amateur developers who are trying to become professional developers, and this is going to be my one key tip that I give every single aspiring developer who's trying to make that next step in their career. So if you're interested in that type of topic, I think you're gonna want to listen to this one. So without further ado, let's get into it. So just as the title of this video denotes, this dev blog is all about how do you go from being that aspiring developer, you know, the amateur developer, to professional developer. And that one key tip I give to every single one of those types of developers. And it's a really easy tip, so get ready for this. It's really simple. Build a thing, deploy a thing. Let me say it a little bit differently. Build a thing and publish a thing. So that might sound a little simple to some people, but really I think it has huge implications. So really what I'm trying to say is, hey, not only build things, not only, you know, come up with new ideas, try out new technology and just go for it, but really what I'm saying is to deploy it, publish it, put it in some type of public forum where people can download it, can play it, try it out, experiment with it, break it, you know, put it out there in the wild. I think that is a key to really making that step from aspiring to developer to really being that professional developer that you want to be. So the reason I say that is that I think you learn a lot when you go through the process of developing a application or something, a game, whatever it may be, and deploying it out in the wild. Probably the biggest thing that I would say you start to learn is how do you go through the whole process? You know, what does it take to take something from development to production? You know, I think a lot of us are very familiar with the coding and getting in there and trying to think out a new idea and develop and code a new idea. But sometimes that next step of really what does it look like to deploy it? What does it look like to package it? What does it look like to put it in a place, a marketplace or some type of environment like that? It's kind of like foreign to many developers. For me, it was foreign. And for me, doing that was kind of like a big breakthrough. It really taught me a lot about the process. It helped me to really learn what does it take to get something from point A to point B. I think another huge thing that comes from really taking applications, not just building them, but deploying them, is that you learn to solidify your knowledge. You really learn that topic, that technology, or whatever it may be, like really strong. You know, I think if you just tool around and you just kind of make experimental projects a lot, you kind of get into this habit of like making a thing. Oh, it's kind of getting a little difficult. It's getting hard to make, and throw it away, move to the next thing. It's not doing what I want. Go to the next thing. But I think one real cool thing about taking something and pushing it all the way from development to production is that you kind of have to learn the nuances of that tool. So for me, I made my first application and put it on the Android App Store, and it took a lot of effort. And the big thing that I learned is that, the implementation or the development practices that I was doing just isn't going to work out in the wild. You know, some of the how I did variables, how I managed data, how I did X, Y, and Z, just in reality doesn't work. And for me to go through the process of really deploying or I guess you could say publishing my application in the App Store taught me so much about the development process and was huge for me as I made steps forward in my career and trying to make big, I guess, changes in my career in the future. Another real powerful thing that comes from taking an application from development to deployment is you learn to be a little bit more, I guess you could say, customer oriented, or I guess you could say outward focused. And what I mean by that is that when you kind of work in these kind of developer worlds where you don't really give your product to other people, is that you kind of lose the scope of why you're doing what you're doing. You know, in the reality, when you make most applications, or when you work at a company, or when you're a startup or whatever it may be, you're not making this application for yourself. You're making it for somebody else. And I think when you start to focus on publishing your application in a way that other people can consume it, and particularly people that you've never talked to, that you've never met, and that you may never interact with, you start to design and develop a little bit differently. You think about, oh, well, this button should be here instead of here, or this mechanic, or this, development, implementation should be like this or like that. You kind of get out of this theoretical world and really get into the practical. And if you really want to take your skills to the next level, if you really want to go from that amateur developer to that professional developer, it's really, really important to be able to understand the difference between, what works on my terminal and what really works for a customer out in the real world, or somebody who's not you in the real world. Another big plus of working on projects, developing them and publishing them is that when it's time for you to go and interview for your first job or your next job or what have you, you have something to show. I cannot tell you how many times I've been in interviews and me just saying like, oh, I have an app in the App Store, the Apple App Store right now that they can click a link to and they go to and they can download to their phone and they can use, was a big difference maker. I think having something out in the wild that any employer or any person who's interested in you as a candidate for a job can view and use is a really great way to kind of show them your skills and to show them the practicality of what you've been doing and what you've been learning, before you met them. I think one way to really know if somebody knows what they're doing is to see if they've actually done it. And having something deployed out in any platform, if it's the App Store, if it's the Android App Store, if it's on, some kind of open source website, or if it's just on GitHub published in that way, or if it's on itch.io if you're making games, or Steam or whatever have you, like those things speak a lot for your skills and what you can do. Finally, I think one of the hugest things that you get from making an application and deploying it out into the real world is you learn discipline. This is something that really changed my trajectory in my career. When I really got the opportunity to put something out into the real world, really get it out there, it showed me that number one, I could do it, but it showed me the path that it takes to get it done. I think that it's hard sometimes to really see what it takes to be a professional when you haven't done something in a professional way. If you are just making these applications and just, I'm just gonna throw them in my trash folder, or I have a folder that's called experimental or development or whatever it may be, and nobody's ever going to see these things, it's hard to really prove out, I guess you could say, your skill set. But when you go through the process of making an application, thinking through how you're going to deploy it, where you're going to deploy it, what, all the different constraints that you need, it builds this discipline, this programming, this development discipline. It shows you the roadmap that it takes to take something from A to B. And I think that's really, really powerful. So it builds a discipline not only in your work ethic and what you do when you create applications, but also you just kind of learn the discipline of developing applications they can use for the long term. So I hope you can tell, from me that I'm kind of passionate about this, that I think that building an application and putting it out there in the wild is a key skill for any developer who's trying to take their skills to the next level, trying to take their career to the next level. And I think that if you today are sitting there and you're really wanting to, think about what you need to do to really get to that next point in your career, I really encourage you, if you have not already, to go ahead and take one of those little pet projects you have, one of those really cool ideas that you have stewing in your brain, in your head here, and put it on paper, put it in code, and then deploy it and publish it out into the world for people to see. So thank you so much for checking out this video, and I really appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to making more dev blogs and sharing my thoughts and the things that I'm learning along the way with you. Y'all take it easy, and until next time. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. More and more dev blogs to come, more and more content to come. I really look forward to sharing it with you guys. Y'all take it easy, and I'll see you guys around.